You're listening to Two Beers Until Phronesis, a philosophy podcast by students, graduates, and anyone else interested in ideas. Alongside regular guests and friends, we discuss some of life's big questions over a few beers. Enjoy! Hello, Joe.
Hi.
Hello, Joe.
Hello.
Right, so Joe, your dissertation is on AI and consciousness.
Yes.
So yeah, that's for third year RPE, Religion, Philosophy and Ethics. How long is it?
9,000 words.
Right, cool.
It's quite short, really.
Yeah, in comparison to recent years, yeah.
What's the exact question?
So, I've played around with a few ideas. Initially, I was floating around with the idea of focusing it solely on AI and talking about consciousness as a caveat to AI. Figured out I'm not a scientist. I can't really do that.
Yeah.
So I've had to switch it around the opposite way and say, what is consciousness and what does it mean for artificial intelligence?
Right.
So kind of add AI as a caveat to make it sound a bit more interesting.
Yeah.
Because the original idea was to talk about AI to keep it up to date, keep it modern, keep people interested in it.
Yeah.
I realised I don't know that much about AI. So
Yeah.
just to make consciousness sound more interesting,
Yeah.
I've added in a bit of AI. So what I was trying to do is avoid the question consciousness question mark, where in reality that's all the dissertation is, just talking about AI a little bit on the side to make it sound a bit more interesting. But really it's a consciousness question, which is fine.
Yeah. So regular listeners to our show, of which there are about 3, will know that we did a podcast on AI recently. We were mostly talking about the mechanics and stuff, but we largely avoided these questions because when it comes to consciousness, it's so difficult to pin down exactly what it is. So you were telling me earlier out in the garden when I was burning some wood, you basically decided that you didn't know what consciousness is.
Pretty much.
For the intro. So
Pretty much.
Did you come to any real conclusions about consciousness, or why did you decide it was so hard?
Well, basically the first chapter to my dissertation is establishing what we mean when we say the words artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
So giving a basic overview of that and concluding with a definition. Then an attempt to define consciousness.
Okay.
Basically figured out I couldn't do it. I couldn't define consciousness that in a general sense, because what there are is lots of different definitions of consciousness from different people.
Definitely, yeah.
And so in showing that there's lots of different definitions, I showed that there isn't one universal one that works yet.
Which one are you going? Because you're a proponent of Daniel Dennett. No.
Yeah.
Oh, you are.
Dennett, definitely.
Right, yeah. Because it's Nye that hates Dennett.
Right.
That's why I wanted to get you two talking on it.
Okay.
He fucking hates it. Thinks it's a load of crap. Yeah. I mean, from what little I've read on Dennett, I'm pretty much I think it also relates into free will and stuff. So
Can you tell me what he said?
Yeah, well, because we're going to unpack a lot of things. First of all, right, let's unpack what artificial intelligence is. If you want to look at the mechanics and exactly how it all works and some of the more intricate definitions and things, you can go back and look at that podcast we did. We'll just recap for now. So
I'm going to ask a lot of stupid questions because I don't know.
We need that.
We need for things like consciousness and AI. We need a lot of stupid questions.
So, come to the right loser.
So we can basically play on behalf of the audience. And
yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing it intentionally.
Yeah.
So what I've got from a scientific approach to artificial intelligence from a book that I've just got off my dissertation. I don't fully understand it, but I basically used it to get a simple definition of AI. 40 quid well spent, I reckon, but I'll sell it, it's fine. So a couple of the vague terms that I picked up on in the introduction to the book are that an artificial intelligence must think humanly, God knows what that means.
Yeah, that's...
think rationally, act humanly, and act rationally.
Should we go through...
should we not go through each of those? That's difficult.
Think humanly. I think they've just thrown that in there to that's kind of just a catch-all kind of...
I get act humanly.
Respond humanly.
So a lot of the more cutting-edge research into AI is to try and make it communicate with humans in a convincing way and to convincingly portray a human.
That's the Turing Test, isn't it?
Yeah. But, thinking humanly, I'm not...
Why does it have to?
Does that mean thinking like a human? Or
The problem is saying to think human assumes that we know what it is to be human, and that
Which
is
we don't, yeah.
which is the arrogance of this book,
Yeah.
because we don't know that at all. We've got a clue.
Well, I think there is probably a differentiation between thinking very basically like a robot and thinking more complexly, or at least mirroring human thought or in appearance, or I think there's some things that are given there. It's not terribly complicated, but it is difficult. I've actually come across the idea that AI is basically anything to do with computer intelligence that we haven't yet fully got to grips with. So things like voice activation and voice recognition in its simpler forms were considered AI, and now they're no longer considered AI. So it's basically anything that we get to work out,
Yeah. Why should it have to think humanly, though? Because why are we the standard of... Is it simply for the benefit of us to understand that it's clever?
capitalism, basically, because all the research into AI is effectively so it can translate and apply into business. So the more human it can be, the more applications it has in things like customer interaction and automation, as we were talking about in the garden.
Doesn't that come into look human? Like a self-service machine responds to you, like, have you got a bag? Or, that comes under... You can tell it's not thinking, but it is.
Well, I think a lot of research indicates that people don't like things that imitate humans, like the human face, the uncanny valley kind of thing. And people find it creepy, basically.
Mm-hmm. But it's better than printing out a receipt with loads of numbers on.
Like, so it's finding that balance, and I think a lot of research and development goes into public conception of AI as well, whether they find it scary and what kinds of AI they'll be comfortable with and which kinds they can therefore pursue and things.
So, talking of thinking humanly, when I was doing some work in second year, so this is like basically a rudimentary version of my dissertation now. So my question was a little bit more arrogant back then. It was, how close are we to artificial intelligence? Should we be worried? It's a little bit wordy and a bit nasty. So I've refined that a little bit and learnt from my mistakes in writing that essay, which was kind of the point of it, to be honest. And I talk about something called the frame problem.
Right.
Just as a caveat, apparently by maths and science and other such wizardry, it has been solved now. But I'll say it anyway, just because I think it gives a good definition of what thinking humanly might be. So the way Dennett describes the frame problem is that there is a robot, a bomb, and a wagon. The robot is told its only goal is to survive. Its battery is low, and in order to survive, it must retrieve the battery that is on a wagon in a room. Also on the wagon is the bomb. So the robot then pulls the wagon out of the room in the hope that it will retrieve the battery, but of course it also retrieves the bomb, and therefore it explodes. The robot's creators then upgrade it slightly, so it is able to deduce the implications of its actions. The robot then pulls the wagon out of the room, deducing that doing so would cause the wheels to turn and not cause the colour of the walls to change, and once again the bomb explodes. The designers then implement a system in which the robot can discriminate between relevant and irrelevant implications of its actions. Instead of retrieving the wagon, the designers find the robot sitting, as Dennett describes, Hamlet-like, outside the room. This shows that the robot, instead of acting, is weighing up all the thousands of possible relevant implications and making lists before it can act. So, what the example is showing in terms of what human thinking is we're able to discriminate quickly what is relevant and irrelevant in terms of implications. So, if we take a bomb out of a room, is it going to change the colour of the walls? Is it going to change my name? Stuff like that. It's suggesting there's a certain human know-how rather than a machine.
Yeah,
So I think looking at all the different possible examples.
Yeah, I think what that gets at is a more kind of general intelligence, because we're talking about like guided or overseen AI that you basically change the parameters ever so slightly each time, and they're focused on one specific task.
Yeah.
I think your dissertation probably is looking at you're looking at obviously consciousness and
it goes totally beyond that. I'm just using that purely as a means to an end for talking about what thinking humanly might entail.
What's the difference between simply being an intelligent thing and being a conscious thing?
Well, yeah. So there's a step from the more like binary focused kind of AI to general intelligence, which is like being able to discriminate between the relevancy of different inputs and things without having to work within set parameters and having to have that keep being changed. But in terms of consciousness, is a whole different kettle of fish. And I mean, you're best to take on this definition. So, what definitions of consciousness did you find?
Sorry, I was reading a guy called Peter Hacker.
Do you think he was born and was like, well, I've got to do something with computers? Got to figure something out. That's it.
And basically what he gets at is that whenever we talk of consciousness, all we're talking about is qualia.
What's qualia?
Qualia is the non-physical substance of stuff that... Oh, it's bloody hard, isn't it? A subjective conscious experience. So to put that in terms that humans can understand, when you look at a red rose, there is a certain feeling you get when you see a certain redness, and that non-physical stuff is supposedly qualia.
Something that's only your reaction. No one else has to say
it's subjective entirely, and you can't really put it into words, and you can't describe it without comparing it to something else.
Okay.
See, but you don't buy that.
Not totally. So what Hacker is saying is that consciousness is qualia. It may as well be the same thing because of the way we talk about it. And he essentially says that that's not very useful. That gets us no closer to understanding consciousness at all.
Yeah.
Which I fully agree with. I don't think it's useful at all.
No, I don't. Have you already decided on what definition of consciousness you prefer?
Yeah. So I'm leading towards a mix of what Hacker says and then backing him up with what Dennett says.
Okay. And what does Dennett say?
Dennett's basic idea is that consciousness is an illusion.
Yeah.
Which I'm at the moment fully on board with.
Well, he's a soft determinist in terms of free will. I think free will relates heavily with
it does.
The idea of consciousness.
I hate to be soft determinism.
Sorry, we've got to unpack these terms.
No, you're right.
Yeah. Just do that, the whole podcast. Soft determinism. So there are roughly 3 approaches to free will. I've got to remember my fucking A-levels here because we didn't touch on this evening. It's one of the things, this is basically why I did this podcast, to look back on these ideas. You've got the complete idea of free will, which is basically a theological idea. It only exists within religion. Usually that's a kind of theological juggle used to be like, well, the Bible says we do, so we've got to try and work that in there.
And the whole moral system is balanced on free will.
Yeah, exactly.
You can only be bad because of your own actions.
Oh god, then you get to Euthyphro and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's a can of worms. And
it really is.
I spoke to a guy who came along to a humanist meeting, and he was basically shunned by his community. He was a Christian and he didn't believe in free will, and obviously that's kind of incongruent. You can't really do that, but he was basically a determinist. So determinism is basically one of the most prominent examples of determinism I can think of memory is Clarence Darrow. He was a fucking...
Yeah, the Leopold and Loeb case.
Yeah, he was a lawyer, and he basically got 2 people off by saying that they were just a product of their environment and their upbringing.
They murdered someone, didn't they?
Yeah. Basically, determinism is the idea that you're just a product of things, down to a very causal level, and in terms of... right down to a molecular level. But there are some counters to that, like the theory that at some basic level there is randomity in molecules and whatever. I'm not a scientist.
That'll become even more clear throughout this episode. None of us are scientists.
Yeah. It's every fucking philosopher's problem. Yeah, so soft determinism is a balance between the two. That basically there is some leeway in there somewhere to allow for some free will. It is hard determinism, which is like there's no way out of it. Everything, you're just trapped in this continual domino effect. Whilst it's interesting some of the arguments used to justify soft determinism, but most philosophers fall pretty hard on it that free will is an illusion. And Dennett is only just about a soft determinist.
If I could illustrate soft determinism a little bit, forgive me if I balls this up, but the way I like to see it in my mind is that determinism, as in hard determinism, is there are a set of options and which option you choose is determined. And it's always going to be that case because of your environment, because your upbringing, everything like that. You don't really have a choice properly. Soft determinism is more, you would always be facing those set of options, but the option in which you choose is slightly your choice. So
it's
there's
like,
more leeway for actual free will.
I'm faced with the option of being a professional basketball player or not being a professional basketball player.
Yeah.
And I could choose to be a professional basketball player.
Yeah.
But the chances are, because of my genetics or my upbringing or whatever,
Right.
that I will not.
Well, it's right down to every action we take, like what right now, the words we choose to.
If you do an A-level, you already know this. This is just very A-level.
If you've done any philosophy, I think you're going to know these concepts. They're probably best for another day as well.
I can't really define consciousness. It can't be defined physically. It can't really be defined mentally. So is it there? It kind of seems the next step to suggest that it might not be there if we can't find it mentally or physically.
There might not be any such thing as consciousness.
Right. So my thing is that humans are so bloody arrogant, and we always like to think we're really special, and we look for the mysticism in things when the mysticism really might not be there. And I think that could be the case with consciousness, that we're looking for something extraordinary, and we're going to have a huge revelation when we find what consciousness really is. But I think we're just applying far too much mysticism. We're getting too excited about something that's probably really simple.
So are you suggesting that when I'm picturing an elephant in my head, what's really happening is like an electrical discharge or some neurons or fucking whatever going on in the synapse? I'm not a scientist. In the synapses of my brain. Like,
I don't like to be that reductionist.
Is it all just material?
It's all material anyway.
Yeah.
The question is whether it's that material is causal entirely. Is
it causal or is it epiphenomenal? Yeah.
Epiphenomenal.
Mm.
What does that mean?
Basically, the mind relies on the brain. So there's a physical reaction and then some kind of non-physical stuff happens
Something
outside
happens.
of it. There's not causal, it just happens.
The qualia.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Quite right.
Well, so yeah, something sort of jumps in from somewhere that isn't causal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just there.
So the mind doesn't control the body, it just kind of happens as a result of the body existing. Epiphenomenalism.
Diabetics love it.
So this question of consciousness, how exactly does it relate for you to artificial intelligence?
So the implication so far is that we don't know what it is, can't define it, so it might not be there, but we still experience this illusion that we think we are conscious, or we at least think there's something, such a cliche, but there's something more, there's something else. I hate saying that, but so if it is the case that we are just simple biological machines that experience this illusion, the question is, will an artificial intelligence also experience this illusion?
All right.
If
I'm not convinced that we'll get to the point where we'll ever know.
Yeah.
Are you aware of the distinction between consciousness, machine consciousness, and a singularity?
For the purpose of this podcast now, who came up with it?
Ray Kurzweil.
What's he doing at the moment? Does anyone know? He's working at Google for
Is he?
AI.
Oh, Jesus, fuck.
All right.
So,
Right. So a singularity is basically an AI is learning at an exponential rate.
It basically catches up to itself, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To the point where it learns everything in a second. It's got to the point where it's so advanced.
And it's learning how to learn at an increasing rate.
Yeah.
It's improving itself and faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. And a lot of people confuse that with machine consciousness, which I think is...
It's a totally different idea.
Yeah. Because a lot of... Like, so Skynet in Terminator
you don't have to tell me.
is... it's a singularity.
Do you know Arnold Schwarzenegger is the same age as Ryan Gosling?
Yeah. Now look at
Skynet in that thing, when it chooses to destroy all the humans or whatever, that's a singularity, but it's not necessarily conscious.
because it realises that actually the one thing the world doesn't need is humans. I love that. That it's got a singularity and it's like, what next? No humans.
Yeah, and that's the problem of... Have you come across the term perverse instantiation?
I can't say I have.
So that's when a singularity happens, but the parameters haven't been set properly. So Skynet hasn't been programming the parameters to not destroy humans.
What kind of parameters are we looking at? What do you mean by parameters? So like
Well,
rules.
it's set parameters to not kill us all.
Yeah,
Is that Asimov?
Asimov's laws, the three... Go on,
Asimov's gone.
Yeah,
a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human to come to harm. A robot must obey the orders given to it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. And the third law is a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law.
I think it can defend itself as long as it doesn't...
Yeah, kind of makes sense, but I know it's been criticised quite a lot.
So in iRobot,
Yeah.
which is a film that actually opens with Asimov laws,
Yeah.
I'm basically just going to keep throwing up fiction examples, but is it Vicky in iRobot, the machine that goes...
The one of the
like the mainframe thing? Right, so is that an example of the singularity, or is it machine consciousness? I think it's machine consciousness. It isn't just learning at an increased rate, because it's contemplative and self-aware.
If you give a robot a trolley problem, like, what's it going to do?
Yeah, well, this is another thing we mentioned in the thing, and we should unpack the trolley problem. I failed to do that in the last thing. I couldn't fucking explain the trolley problem. I just basically went, oh, there's a track, and there's this...
Before the track, and the train's coming.
There's a fat man on a bridge.
Yeah, so I was just like picking apart all the little bits, but I didn't explain the critical premise that this train is going to crash into one of the two.
Yeah, so there's a fork in the track.
Yeah, it sounded like I was like the train was going to go pick them up or something. But yeah, there's a runaway train and it's going to head towards one of two things, and you can pull the lever to decide which one it smashes into, and you have to take into account what's on both forks.
One's got a pregnant lady.
Yeah,
and the other one's got an old lady with a child or something.
Yeah, and then you can keep swapping the variables. So you stick a...
The standard is a utilitarian idea of there's 5 people on one track, one person on another track.
Mm.
Utilitarian says, kill the one person to save the many.
I mean, my criticism of the trolley problem, and because this is often what's taught to students, the trolley problem, this is ethics.
Mm.
It's not ethics. And I think that's true for several reasons. For a start, it's way too morbid, it's too calculative, and it kind of misses the whole point of ethics, which is a more fundamental question of recognition of the human subject. And that's something that this kind of abstract way of thinking about moral questions fails to see. And you've also got this problem like, well, when are you ever going to be presented with a situation like this? Ethics is more of a practice and a cumulative looking at things. It's not to do with cognition. You're never going to be stood there on a track ready to pull the lever. So although they're kind of useful, these questions are kind of limited because you're never going to really be in any kind of situation like that or have to think in ethics, think about ethics in that kind of dimension. Unless you're a politician, but politics isn't ethics. Politics is the application of morality, which in itself is the application of ethics.
Yeah, so you're saying that politics is removed from ethics?
It's twice removed. It's its distant cousin, yeah. But I think trolley problems are useful. They're very useful for getting students talking and stuff.
Not only that, it's not just a hypothetical anymore because of self-driving cars. Trolley problem into self-driving cars.
In favour of utilitarianism.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So
again, what
that's
form
design.
of utilitarianism? And it's like, what variables do you put in? Do you use like a hedonic calculus like the first guy to come up with utilitarian did? Because that's awful. Because that's like...
Yeah, Bentham. Fucking
how long is the pleasure going to last? How strong is the pleasure? Like, what does any of this mean? Like,
I think it's
how can you do that?
For self-driving cars, it's like very, very, very simple. Like you're going to mow into 3 people and the car will decide to drive into a wall and kill the driver.
Kill the driver, yeah.
Rather than killing these 3 people. And there's nothing you can do about it. The car will just do it.
Yeah.
What we were saying about future capitalism, is there going to be an underground market for cars that won't kill the driver and people will pay more for them kind of thing,
Just so they can mow children down.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, my self-driving mechanism broke, and then they get loads of money because they can sue them.
Yeah.
No, it's really difficult, and I think most people go for just basic utilitarianism stuff when it comes to programming machines. That seems to be the prevalent argument. Save more lives, risk the fewer lives. Maybe there's a way we can kind of move away from that utilitarianism, because I mean, when you talk to most people, you realise they're not utilitarian, and nobody is. That's just pragmatism. So maybe there's a way to communicate to machines this kind of complexity and richness of moral questions the way humans do it, but maybe not. elsewhere in science fiction, you have this TV show called The 100. Don't know if you've ever seen it.
Yeah,
Pretty schlocky.
It looked,
shocking.
yeah, it
It's really
looked
bad.
awful. Is it on E4?
Yeah,
I quite like
that says
it.
a lot.
But apparently it got better with age.
It did. It really did. Throws up some interesting... Because the guy writing it clearly likes science fiction ideas. The first series has got all this like teen drama shit going on. It's
Yeah,
weird.
it's just-
Because I
why-
watched the advert, I was like, no,
Yeah.
not going to watch that.
But as it develops, there's more mature themes, more heady themes about like... I don't know, it's got a little bit of...
Stephen King likes it.
Did it?
Yeah, big fan of 100. He tweeted.
How do you know all this trivia?
Because I'm a useless bank of shit.
Yeah.
I don't...
What's that thing? Lord of the Flies. Yeah, so it's like Lord of the Flies at first. Bunch of kids come down from space. They're the first people on Earth after it got annihilated in a nuclear war. So they're basically trying to figure out how to set up a society. It's pretty ethical. There's different competing ideas and stuff. If you can sift through all the fucking
Teen drama.
people sleeping with each other, yeah.
Oh.
But after
Is that
that,
comparable to Lost in that scenario?
I think so. I've never actually
Because
seen
Lost is supposed to be philosophical, isn't it? I think some of the main characters are named after philosophers in some kind of rudimentary form.
Wow.
Clearly,
Is
I've
it
never
that
watched
subtle?
it.
That's
Yeah.
What's your name, Aristophanes? Just call me Harry.
But
No, I genuinely think one of them's called John Locke. I don't know.
right.
I haven't watched it, but I think there's some kind of reference there.
well, anyway, so there's a bunch of social problems, and it all comes to a head when they realise that an AI has awoken itself, and the AI actually, spoilers, caused the nuclear war.
What series are we on to find this?
3,
Oh no, gonna have to
5.
skip that.
5 series. Yeah, sorry.
Is it still going?
Yeah,
I'm never gonna watch it,
It's,
so-
it's still going.
I'm never gonna watch
You don't need to go that far anyway.
Yeah, someone called John Locke.
Yeah, I just googled the casting for Lost. There is a guy called John Locke. Desmond Hume.
Yeah, because
That's incredible.
Hume is a pretty common last name, you know, one of the founding empiricists.
I like that a lot.
I'm surprised there isn't like a fucking
Fucking hell.
Sophocles popping up.
Polto.
Yeah. Alright, I'm gonna open a beer, hang on. So, yeah, this AI destroyed humanity because it wasn't sufficiently programmed to not identify humanity as a threat. The parameters weren't in place to prevent it from doing that. So, when a singularity occurred, it wasn't conscious, it couldn't learn new things properly, but it was just working at increasing levels within its set parameters. And it couldn't break those parameters and learn anything new outside of that.
So are you saying that the absence of parameters is part of consciousness? So if it can be,
I could be.
you could be.
Yeah.
Sure, why not?
Sure, why not?
I mean, I was, but yeah, I'm not sure if that's right, but yeah, we'll go for that.
I don't know if I'm jumping ahead, but so talk about Skynet. It finds what's supposedly good, and it follows that, and maybe that's kill all humans because humans are bad. I take issue with the idea that Skynet has figured out what's good. Because what do we mean when we say what's good? It's going to be different for us than it is for Skynet.
And that's why it's a singularity rather than AI consciousness, because I don't think it's worked out what's good. I think it's just doing what it's programmed to do.
Being really nerdy,
Yeah.
I think there is a bit where they explain that pollution and war. So it surveys all of human history,
Yeah.
and it just weighs up, actually, they've done more things to harm the world than they have to benefit the world.
Skynet concerned with the survival of itself on Earth.
Skynet is designed to protect itself, I think, and I think
Yeah.
the biggest threat to it itself is humans.
Okay.
'Cause
It's a defense program, and it's not
Yeah, because it
really
was
supposed to prioritise
it's a military
any particular
thing,
life.
isn't it?
So I think it's meant to maintain world peace, and it basically.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's the thing. Its parameters aren't defined properly, and that's what causes it. I'm not sure.
the whole mutually assured destruction thing.
Yeah. What I don't
Yeah.
get is why in Terminator Salvation and fucking what's her name plays Skynet from Harry Potter.
Oh yeah.
I want to say Anne Boleyn because she fucking
Bellatrix Lestrange.
yeah, because she played Anne
Helena
Boleyn.
Bonham Carter.
Helena Bonham Carter. Yeah, she
Fucking hell.
played Anne Boleyn in a fucking awful TV drama where Ray Winstone played Henry VIII.
I can see Ray Winstone being Henry VIII.
I love you, Anne.
I can see that happening.
Wolsey. It's just that.
Is it just like half an hour of him eating a chicken leg?
Yeah.
I'd watch that.
I've got the gout. Bet 365. Better play.
Yeah, so Helena Bonham Carter's Skynet in that film.
Yeah.
Why? Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
It's really weird because obviously it's not an example. A lot of people pointed out that's not an example of AI consciousness. It's a singularity. So why does it have a human face? Why is it
being nerdy again?
Go on.
It's because I want to say his name is Marcus, and he's going there, and Skynet is trying to convince him to be bad. So it takes the form of someone he knew.
It's not interested in talking to anyone. It just indiscriminately makes Terminators to fucking horribly kill people. Like, it wouldn't care. It wouldn't go to that length. It's not interested in communicating. It's not that kind of program. Like, it just seems weird.
I think it's an interesting point in general, talking about Terminator. The entire series does not consider consciousness at all.
No.
It is purely artificial intelligence.
As we were wrong, because Terminator 2, they take out Arnie's chip. That's why he's saying shit like "Hasta la vista, baby."
Oh, and then the bit at the end where he's like, "I now know why humans cry.
Yeah.
It was something I cannot do."
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that point.
And he starts smiling.
He actually becomes conscious.
Okay, I give you that.
Yeah.
Point.
What was it? An inhibitor chip or something? Or
Yeah.
So, like you said, parameters.
They're taking out his
defining consciousness.
Yeah.
They remove the parameters. He becomes
I'm not sure
conscious.
he gets any form of morality, but
only what he's learned. But then what do we? Have?
There is a bit when he's shooting people in the knee because he's been told don't kill anyone.
Yeah,
I think that's
programmable,
instruction
though,
rather
isn't it?
than
casualty zero because he's to be honest, he's told to obey.
Yeah.
And that's what he's told to do. Have you ever seen the film AI?
No.
Yeah.
Of course I have.
Steven Spielberg.
But it doesn't. I don't think it really addresses AI, does it?
There are weird
Because-
silicon alien creatures at the end. Remember
Yeah.
that? That's fucking weird.
It's a very confusing film.
It's one of the films that just passed the public by. And
I've got a useless fact for it.
go on,
Stanley Kubrick
started it.
really wanted to make it.
Yeah,
Um,
Steven Spielberg picked it up.
yeah, but the only reason he didn't make it is because he thought that no child actor could convey the amount of emotion that was needed.
Yeah,
And then he died, and the film was attributed to Stanley Kubrick because they found Haley Joel Osment, who
I see dead people kid. They got him.
Yeah.
And basically, this family think their child is going to die or something, so they get this AI kid, but they fucking hate him.
because he's learned the way he's learned because he comes as like a blank slate,
Yeah,
and then he learns how to interact.
but
And there's
then
a bit when he's like laughing because the family's laughing at the dinner table,
and he lasts too long.
and he just carries on laughing, and they're all in silence staring at him laughing, and he's like screaming at their face because he doesn't understand.
Because he doesn't understand social convention.
Yeah.
It's like this Pinocchio theme, like there is in Blade Runner, of the whole real boy thing. He
He
wants to find a fairy to transform him into a real kid.
Don't mean to distract from it, but there's a real sense of that in science fiction and puppetry. We had that in Age of Ultron, didn't we? And the Avengers.
Yeah,
No Strings on Me.
Yeah, and that's the example. That's an example of
It's
kind
basically
of both
yeah.
AI and singularity.
It is, yeah. It's the idea of breaking free from any kind of constraint.
So it's fucking hard. Then they leave him.
In a forest or some shit.
They just leave him out in the woods.
Yeah.
Right.
But he's like, "Oh, Mum, I love you."
And he's like he's like, Mom, like.
And then he gets lost and goes to like a fair where these people are just like bashing the shit out of robots for fun, and he meets. Is it Jude Law? Or he's like a robot prostitute. He's like a gigolo. He has like samples of his clients' voices, and he starts playing them and dancing.
His name.
like,
No. Does anyone want to guess his name in the film?
What is it?
Go on.
It can't get any better. Gigolo Joe.
Oh, which one of us is that?
So what do we think about the ethical implications of having AI? Any ideas? Because you were talking about the automation of it.
Yeah.
The automation of the workplace and the economy.
I guess it's a really boring ethical implication compared to like destruction of the planet.
It's important regardless, though.
Yeah, it's not Skynet, is it?
No, it's really is.
But probably more terrifying in some consequences because obviously it's not this big grandiose thing, so people are like, oh shit, it's going to creep up on us.
Yeah.
People don't realise.
It's already happening, basically. So, not necessarily conscious machines or intelligent, more smart machines.
Yeah.
Machines that serve a purpose.
Yeah. They are...
You know, if air quotes can't be seen on an audio podcast.
That's the way I put air quotes smart machines.
Close air quotes.
Close air quotes. The automation of the workforce is a thing that AI can pretty much just bring about, like the end of jobs that don't necessarily require
we saw
interaction.
We saw it with ploughs and fucking agriculture and stuff.
People are using drones now, aren't they?
Factories, and then in a more modern theatre, we've seen it with till checkouts and drones fighting in wars. I mean, I'm not particularly.
That's a whole different.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to war ethics, but machines can fulfil a lot of human jobs
up to the point where human interaction is just not necessary. I did a Tesco shop today. Spoke to about one member of staff.
Why? Why did you do that?
Because I was using a scanner gun.
Is it because you fucked up on the checkout?
No,
that's the only reason.
Did you fuck up with the scanner gun?
No, it was just a random check.
They do how they nicking stuff.
Yeah, they'll just scan like 5 items.
Yeah.
Yeah, in 2 years a drone will come along and scan you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even, have you seen the Amazon shop?
Oh, the fucking place is insane.
Have you seen that?
No.
It's mental. So you walk in, you've got to be an Amazon customer, but there's no staff in the shop.
Alright.
So you walk in, and there's just like 1,000,000 trillion cameras everywhere that can identify what things you're picking up and putting in your basket. So you pick something up off a shelf, pop it in your basket, and you walk out, and then it charges you for it. You don't have to go to a till. Yeah. It just charges you for it.
Charge your account straight away.
That's horrible.
Yeah. So the only thing that humans need to do is stack the shelves in the morning.
And even
that. Well, not even that.
Yeah. They can get a fucking drone.
Get one of those dog robots with a grabber on top.
Yeah, just put things in a shelf.
Shit.
So, I'm not sure. I think there's only one or two where that's happening. I think it was more of an experiment than anything.
You can experiment or not, if it shows that it can be done, it'll follow.
Yeah, it works. Even if you take things out of your basket and put it back on the shelves, it knows.
Well, I think at some point you have to get onto the more philosophical issue, which I tried raising in the last podcast, and I'm still not really sure how to effectively get the point across, but the idea of how this affects human worth and how we view humanity. I don't know if you have any ideas around that. Do you get what I mean in terms of fundamentally changing what it means to be human?
Well, from a perspective where I own a shop, right? And then I suddenly realised I don't need people anymore. I can just do all of this without paying anyone anything, because the only people I need to pay are the robot technicians who will come in like once a month for a couple of hours, make sure everything's working.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking at all about what a job means to someone.
So it breeds this detachment from
exactly.
Like interaction and humanity and
because like it or not, you need a job to live comfortably. You need a job to be able to afford crap and buy food and eat and drink and whatever. But if it comes to the point where you don't have a job and there's no one sees you as someone who can work for you, then what are they viewing you as instead? What capitalism has got to the point where people see people as numbers,
and you're saying that they won't even be that anymore. Well, I think that will probably mark a shift, and hopefully we'll start to see each other in terms of something better.
Do you think?
Well, I hope so.
Customers.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. But so I said to a friend, I don't know if I've mentioned this before on any podcasts, but I once said to a friend, let's say we did shift our economic model. We finally got complete communism. All our basic needs are met by automated workforce. As I said to you before, Engels had a few problems with that because he thought that
basically someone's always got to be in charge of the robots and
you're gonna have
potential to manipulate them. Be in charge.
Even if it's just a guy who comes along once a week to check if they're still all the cogs are all turning, you're gonna have human supervisors, and these people are going to end up being the ruling class. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that, but what I do agree with is that let's say our economic model shifted. So what we're dealing with is a world where we can pursue our hobbies and everything. And I think we would probably have a class system develop out of that. In terms of the hobbies we pursue, that we'd probably all be musicians and poets.
Well, you've got to think about the existence of money, because unless it's a service like an experience, if everything was just done for us, we had food on the plate, what kind of value does money have? Is there going to be better food that you can get automated for you?
First of all, in the first scenario, we don't even have money.
I'm struggling to think of any world where money isn't a thing. Communism, and there's no money in Star Trek. I think at least in the original series. Probably not in the other ones where there's space bars.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, the Federation is one thing. That there are other places besides the Federation in Star Trek.
Yeah, like in Earth.
There are sleazy planets. Yeah, yeah.
Money.
Well, Earth is different because Earth goes through a nuclear war before it gets to Star Trek phase.
Yeah.
They unite because they have to, because they fuck the planet up.
But then after that, civilization emerges, so there's no money.
Yeah, and like a lot of what fuels that is amazing technology.
Yeah.
All their needs are met.
Mm.
You join Starfleet because it's fun and exciting.
You get to go visit crap.
Yeah. And
all right, Star Trek world. Where there's no money.
I mean, I don't fuck how that works. I mean, so let's say everything is fucking 3D printed for you and synthesized.
Yeah.
There's no environmental cost because the AI algorithms are working that out, and that the carbon footprint is nothing. But anyway, so my friend basically said to this idea that I said completely hypothetically, there's no money, there's nothing.
Mm.
Everything you want is in front of you. Maybe a philosophy develops where we don't want that much, but we see value in pursuits like art. And they're not just... And he was like, well, if everyone's getting a book out every 5 seconds, I'm like, no, they're not releasing books to be sold. People are just writing books because they want to write fiction for their own benefit. People will, on their laptops and things, will just have journals and poetry, and people will start picking up all kinds of different crafts, and they'll start painting, they'll start just sitting around like this and having conversations more often. And people will, go to pubs and things, people go for a run. There's a lot of things, and he was like, I can't imagine anything more boring than not working. You must have a fucking great job.
Wouldn't it be impossible to get anyone to do anything? If you wanted to make a film, right? You'd have to convince everyone who was part of that film why they should make that film. Why? Because there's so many different contingent parts of the film. And at the moment now, everyone's just doing it because they see it as work. They're seeing it as a job.
I don't know, I think there are some craftsmen out there, directors especially.
But like lighting people or electricians who work in a studio, they're not like sold on the vision of the film. They're just like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to move this.
For the lighting, you get robots. You got robot people for the menial tasks.
If I could jump in, at the moment, all sorts of arts and culture come from diversity of experience. And if we're in a world where there is no money and we've all kind of got the same opportunities, the likelihood is we will have very similar experiences. So does that take away from art and culture in the sense that we're all going to have similar experiences? We can't convey our different experiences.
Yeah, we'll all be too homogenous.
Yeah.
Because there'll be no struggle.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there's personal struggle, and I think art will be such a big thing. I think people will see themselves in terms of, like, mental illness isn't going to go away, and people are going to struggle with depression and trying to communicate that, and people will be reading different types of fiction. I think people will kind of split with that, but also the hobbies that people do will define them rather than the work they do. I really don't think it'll be that much of a stretch, because I think people will throw themselves into their hobbies completely and try and be the best at what they do, and people will just still do sport, you know what I mean, and that will develop as a culture of its own. That'll be...
But people do have different likes and different tastes.
But isn't the likes and tastes and choices that we have, does that not rely on our different circumstances in the first place?
Yeah, completely. Well, so if I'm going to take your argument to the most simple point, would you say that nothing interesting would happen if we didn't have any kind of hardship?
This is me playing devil's advocate at that point, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are obviously bigger problems with this idea, like, how do people get houses? Does everyone just live where they want to live, or what if everyone wants to live in one place? How do we sort that?
Logistically, it's...
Yeah, I just want to say, I don't agree with this idea. I'm just saying that it wouldn't be boring. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
I don't think it will ever happen.
No.
Because if a government can't sort out leaving fucking the EU, I just can't see people living a life, because it'd just be boring.
I think a lot of the beauty of free time comes from not having much of it.
But I think
if you've got too much of it, you're just like, I want to go to work.
Yeah, see,
I want to do something.
I would get your point if people didn't work in charity shops.
Yeah.
For like 4 days a week. Like, people do this kind of stuff. Musicians who make fucking no money throw themselves into albums and huge projects.
I hope to one day get money though.
But I differentiate between working in a charity shop and writing an album.
Yeah.
Because that's a creative endeavour rather than a...
Selfless.
Well,
that's something they do for themselves rather than something they just do.
Yeah.
And I've proved to myself that I can do it.
Yeah, so it'll be a mix of personal projects and things for the community. But I think social clubs will be the new work. Like, you'll have demands from Warhammer Club going, come on, let's fucking sort some shit out. And you'll have pressures from friendship groups, and socialising will be a large part of everything. And
I can't see, unless it's at a very, 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 very low level of just like...
survival.
I mean,
survival.
Human history always tells us there's an alternative. And, like, look at all the people that are monks and stuff. Like, what are they getting at? Like, we can develop philosophies that cater to a new way of living and get people on board with that.
Mm.
Like, I don't... Just because we're so fixed...
It's interesting you bring up that point. When I was in India... I was talking to
this is going to be every conversation with Joe.
Just you
when
fucking
I was in India,
just you wait.
Oh, my life was changed in India.
Fuck you guys. So I did some yoga anyway.
Had a gap week. I'm just amazed you didn't shit yourself.
I was lucky.
Yeah.
I was really lucky. So you've got these sadhus wandering around everywhere, and they're so concerned about their faith that they've cast off everything and don't want anything at all. They're just concerned about finding the ultimate truth for themselves. But all they do is walk around asking for money, which is the biggest irony of it all. Because they need money to survive, obviously. So they spend their lives asking for money.
Beggars.
Yeah. I find it amusing, the irony of it.
Yeah.
They're just beggars in orange, aren't they?
Pretty much.
So I know another guy who works on a retreat, and he's a monk. Money just doesn't really enter his life. And neither he wouldn't want to buy anything if he had money.
How does he eat?
They're largely self-sustained on a retreat, so they grow their own food and stuff.
I still think there'll be a need for it.
I'm not convinced.
I think there'll be a need for it. Because, say, we've got a 3D printer, we can print everything. What if there's things that you're not allowed to print?
Like what?
Drugs. Say the government's still there, it's like, no, can't print drugs.
I'm not saying there won't be, like, deviants and subcultures and criminal...
Where money will be a thing.
But, I mean, we have that now. We have a massive criminal element in society now with, fucking things like human trafficking. Like, it doesn't mean that for the large part we can exist without that. We don't rely on that. If anything, it hinders us.
But I think that is the exception to the idea that money will just not happen.
If I didn't have to worry about how I'd live, I mean, I can only answer how I would personally respond to it, but like, if I didn't have to worry about rent and food and everything and utility bills, I would probably volunteer at like a fucking wildlife sanctuary or something, and take up loads of... I'd try and learn a few more skills. I'd try and like just do shit. I mean, I'll probably buy a fucking trampoline while I'm at it, but and a couple of bottles of whiskey. But I mean, I think we can encourage people to take on those kinds of endeavours. I think it's seeing the value in that, so that people.
But once everybody has those skills, does the value of those skills not degenerate?
Well, I don't think anyone can learn every skill to a decent degree, and like, I don't know. There's loads of shit to learn, but especially by that point, when we get to that point where we're able to do that. Like, if the planet isn't fucked by then, there'll be just so much shit to learn. Different kinds of crafts and hobbies, and I don't know. It'd be a whole new culture that would develop, and I don't think it would necessarily be boring. I think it would have its own problems, but I really don't think it would be boring. I think that there's a lot of shit besides work that can fulfill and sustain people's intellect and imagination. You've seen a film called Surrogates? Bruce Willis. It's weird, like no one's fucking seen this film, but it kind of takes on the idea of, like, I guess, transhumanism. I'll unpack that. Bruce Willis is a cop, and he lives in this world where he's always a fucking cop, isn't he? Is
he divorced?
Do you know what? He's having marital problems. He's estranged from his current wife. But the reasons why are quite interesting. So he lives in a science fiction world where people don't live in their real bodies. It's called surrogate because people have surrogate bodies.
Okay.
So 90% of the day, people live in little fucking suntan bed things that they go to sleep in, and they pilot remotely, like Avatar, a body, which is like a perfect version. So Bruce Willis has hair in his on his body, but it leads to this really fucking weird culture where just going back to what I said earlier about devaluing humanity. So
can I just? Is this a good film?
I think it has some good ideas.
Okay.
I really
before
do like
I get
the
too
premise.
invested in it.
I really do like the premise. Bruce Willis in the first act basically loses his surrogate body. And he has to
Does
walk around.
Bruce Willis give a shit in this film?
Acting wise, I'm not sure.
You can
I
tell
can't
he's
remember.
like in most films he's in. He's like, don't want to be
It's
here.
quite recent, so I'm not sure. I think it's post Fifth Element, so I don't know. Yeah, I think he does.
Do you think?
Well, he's.
Think he gives a
I
shit?
don't know. I can't really tell because it's been a while since I've seen it, and he plays a very sort of melancholy character because basically he thinks that people shouldn't be in these things.
Yeah.
He says something to someone who he's in a meeting where he's like, I don't know who the fuck you are. You could be like, it's like a really attractive woman. He's like, you could be some 50-year-old diabetic bloke just lying in a sunbed. You've chosen this body or whatever. Like, but he's just like really mopey.
Who's making these bodies? Where are the bodies coming from?
I don't know. It's a company. They must be doing well.
They got a monopoly on.
Literally everyone is in these things, and they're super strong. They're just fucking great. So when people get out of these things, they feel really groggy and they fucking hate themselves because these things are so advanced compared to what they can do.
Yeah.
But frankly, thank God for diversity at that point. Like, when everybody's like the perfect idea of themselves, surely I'm going on about boring, but that just gets boring. So we're done at that point.
Yeah, and this is the big crux of the film. It's like, I can see that shit, and I think more people would reject these things. Not everyone walking around is in one. A lot of people are in between stages of getting a new one, or there's a problem with theirs, or they just maybe don't want it today. But for their jobs especially, most people are just wearing these things. Well, not wearing them, but piloting them remotely from their house. And his wife won't even see him because she hates her body. She'll only see him in this form. She's like got no makeup on at the end when she finally does come out. And
At what point does anyone deserve anything?
Go on.
You say he's a cop.
Yeah. Oh, so
you could just make a body that's like can run really fast after criminals, or can
go back to the basketball.
I think they address this. I think it's. Do you mean how
do people get jobs if they're
Right, how does anybody have their own individual skill?
Yeah.
Right. So certain bodies cost more. Certain bodies can do more. So his body gets destroyed for a while, and he considers going into another one. But they only have a replacement one, which is like really basic, with uncanny valley, doesn't look right.
So, but some of them are strong. Right?
Yeah.
So you could earn enough money to get a strong one, rob a bank with the strong one, and get a stronger one, and then carry on going up that chain because maybe you're stronger now. You can do weightlifting. You can be a personal trainer. Personal trainers are shit tons of money. Loads of money.
Well, I don't think you need a personal trainer if you've got a body like that.
That's a good point. Maybe
unless they come around to your house and deal with your actual body.
Yeah. So it's kind of just I know I'm reading way too far.
Are you? Yeah.
I'm interested in it.
Oh, I thought you were saying like what's the if you're attacking other bodies, like what's the problem?
Yeah. Yeah, I am also.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a lot of the crime is focused around people breaking into houses and damaging people's actual bodies.
They're in the...
Or at least damaging... If you use your surrogate body to attack another surrogate body, what you're doing there is damaging someone's property.
I'd like to adapt my statement.
The average wage of a personal trainer is like £19,000 per year.
Anyway, so I wanted to get onto transhumanism.
Okay.
Right. Have you come across transhumanism?
Yeah. You wrote a good essay on this, didn't you?
I don't think it's an idea anymore. It's more of like a aim or a goal, isn't it? For some people.
Oh, it's this pipe dream for rich people that want to pressure school kids into funding. Like, do you want mummy and daddy to die? Well, tell your parents to fund my thing so I can live forever in a fucking
tube.
Yeah, a fucking kaleidoscope.
So Well, the word transhumanism is they're transcending human bodies,
Yeah.
not bodies and minds.
Which
So
which in and of itself invokes this idea that currently it's not enough. It's superior to something we already
It's
have.
transcending the issues that humanity currently faces.
Yeah.
So essentially, they give a list of things like death, illnesses, depression, mental health, that kind of thing.
Yeah, which I don't think you can include death and illness in the same thing. Like I think mortality is a big part of our current existentialism, and I think it's this immutable thing. It informs a lot of our ethics, a lot of our interaction.
And they're like, these people are just like, yeah, we can overcome it through the use of technology. We're gonna overcome the flaws of humanity.
Yeah.
I think it's Julian Huxley,
Okay.
Aldous Huxley's brother. It was a French dude, I'm sure, who kind of coined the term. Yeah, but it is fundamental level. It's just transcending the human condition.
Pretty much.
There's loads of different ways that people have said we can do it. A lot of them are just as improbable as the next.
Yeah, the idea of uploading consciousness into like a fucking cybernetic form.
Yeah.
But people don't understand. These people that are terrified of dying and want to do that, it's like, that won't be you after you do that. That's like...
There's something missing of what was you, isn't there?
Yeah, well, part of what it means to be you is to live in a physical body.
Yep.
If you were a brain in a jar, your frames of reference are going to be removed. You're going to start thinking very, very differently. If you're not seeing out of eyes, if you're not touching with your hands, if you're not smelling with your nose, you're going to be something much different.
Yeah, I think that's what I kind of concluded my grade 78 essay on. It was they propose it as like the next stage of human evolution, like fucking X-Men or something.
Yeah.
But it's not human at all. It's like it's disassociation with everything that's human.
That's not evolution. Anyway,
Well, that's how they say. Oh,
That's what transhumanism claims.
yeah, we're curing all the faults of human.
Well, I don't think.
But at that point,
I don't
Is
think
it more
mortality is a fault.
I think it's a fundamental. It's the fundamental.
It's a natural part of it.
Yeah, so pushing for AI doesn't necessarily mean this, but I think the desire for this kind of constant transformative change in humanity's skills, innovation, decision making, expressions of art, and people's jobs and livelihoods. In a lesser way, phones changed the idea of the conversation, the internet changed reality, so it's all rooted in, I guess, a deeper idea that extends a lot further than AI. It's like this contemporary push for progress and betterment. And you can unpack those two words because, like, what do they mean?
Yeah.
And the reason I keep mentioning religion is because I suspect, and I think this is something that relates to your dissertation on existentialism and the other and stuff, which we'll talk about that soon as well. But it's basically the same ontology as religion. So the way humans are framed, and I'd argue they're framed as inferior subjects, or at least there's an interesting parallel there. I mean, the reality is a little bit more nuanced. Basically, where AI and defining humanity meet really profusely. Like, it's woven into concepts like gene therapy, life extension, brain fucking implants, computer interfaces, uploading your mind into a big jellyfish tank. The premise of this movement, it's uncanny in its comparison to something like the Abrahamic faith. It's got this kind of staunch hatred of the human condition as it is at face value, sort of desperate vein of morbid existentialism, all focusing on towards death, all focusing towards a kind of... It's weird because it's like a hatred of life. They love life and they hate life at the same time. It's very bizarre. But they're all really concerned about promoting, what's the word? An eschatology, like an end game. It's all about overcoming human fragility, and it's all about talking about this far-off future. Language and ideas are all talking about something far off in the distance, not in the here and now. I can't think of anything more religious. So
there's a lot of articles and examples that compare religion and transhumanism quite nicely.
The fact that things have a finality...
Is that Heidegger? Who's like,
possibly.
What makes us human is death, and the fact that we have a concept of death.
There's also a sociologist, Ernest Becker, who I think talks about the fact that everything we do is to deny death. But
it's true.
Yeah, he thinks that everything is just a complete denial of the fact that we're all going to die one day.
The fact that we're here talking, doing a podcast, rather than sitting at home thinking about how we're going to die one day.
It's a distraction, yeah. or at best a way to come to terms with it in terms of making the most out of the time you have. But for most people, it's just distracting.
Now I'm just thinking about my own death.
How do you picture yourself dying?
I don't.
Like
really.
Elvis Presley.
It's
You know
like,
the theory that Elvis Presley is like a secret agent who faked his own death.
do you think?
No, I don't think, because
went to
why-
Venezuela.
Why would you
Do you remember
fake?
when, when Jesus got on that boat and went to America? Um,
Why would you fake your own death like that?
Invited Joseph Smith.
yeah. You wouldn't. You just
Yeah, so the CIA go up to Elvis Presley and say, yeah, so do you want
time to go.
to be an agent? How do you want to die? Shit on the toilet. No, we can have you shot, like,
Yeah.
you know.
We can have you try and jump the Grand Canyon. Something goes wrong.
And you do the splits and you get torn in two or something. Like,
Yeah. You're fighting a bear and the bear wins.
You go up to space. Oh yeah, no, shit on the toilet.
That impression's got to be a regular feature now.
I've eaten a lot of hamburgers and I shit myself. Shit myself to death. Oh.
I don't feel like you've been working on that.
You have, I mean. Oh.
Hamburger.
For the last 5 years of his life, he was just wearing a big fat suit.
It's a big camera. Yeah.
It's reminiscent of Jim Morrison, actually. In his last year of life, he got really fat and then mysteriously died a little bit.
Did he? A little bit.
A little bit.
Have you seen Death Becomes Her?
No.
It's I can't remember who makes it, but it's Meryl Streep and Bruce Willis is in it as well, and he does give a very good performance.
A convincing performance.
It's very over dramatic, but I think that's part of the film. There's like a weird cult that's got a vial and it makes you immortal, but you don't heal, you just don't die. With all the
So
people.
you'll be walking around, there's like a bone man, just completely,
Yeah.
spooky skeleton.
Yeah.
A bone man.
By the end of the film, Meryl Streep's like
Bone man.
falling apart.
So yeah, Meryl. What is
What's
it?
that? What a bone man? I don't believe that.
I don't know.
Let's just take the word skeleton out of the dictionary. Because bone man, it's fucking amazing.
Replace it with bone man. But bone man is a microaggression. I apologise to any female skeletons. I think we're pausing this up twice.
But I take big issue. Big issue. Fuck's sake. I take issue with the idea that.